The public discourse is fixated on kinetic theater. U.S. planes fly over Kaliningrad. Pundits analyze Russian tactics in Kupiansk. This is a calculated misdirection designed to focus attention on the obsolete metrics of 20th century warfare. The primary vector of systemic attack is not the missile launch. It is silence. CSIS reports detail the absolute dependency of global finance on a handful of submarine cable choke points. Severing these is not about disrupting internet service. It is a direct assault on market liquidity. The objective is to engineer a systemic solvency crisis, turning a prosperous nation into a failed state with the speed of a Venezuela. The kinetic cost is zero. The economic consequence is total. The second vector is orbital. Reports from RUSI confirm the viability of non-kinetic satellite blinding. By disabling GPS and ISR constellations, you do not destroy a carrier group. You render it a multi-billion-dollar floating liability. You blind the Leviathan, stripping it of the situational awareness required for conventional power projection. This two-pronged protocol, economic strangulation and sensory deprivation, is designed to create one outcome: a blind Leviathan. A state that retains its terminal, nuclear leverage, but has lost all conventional and economic recourse. By systematically removing its options, the adversary is forced into a state of asymmetric escalation. Its terminal weakness creates a mathematical certainty of nuclear-level risk. This isn't a potential failure of the system. It is the engineered feature. The primary motive is not battlefield annihilation. It is the engineering of a national solvency crisis. According to analysis from strategic institutes like RUSI, prolonged high-intensity conflict is designed to become a terminal domestic liability for the target state. The objective is to make the kinetic cost of conventional war so extreme that it bankrupts the regime politically and economically. The state is forced to audit its own survival, weighing the accelerating cost of symmetric warfare against dwindling public support. This engineered weakness forces a systemic pivot. When a state can no longer afford the price of conventional victory, it must change its tactics to conserve capital. We have direct evidence of this protocol in action. Reports confirm Russian forces are changing tactics near Kupiansk, abandoning large-scale mechanized assaults for attritional attacks with small units. This is not a strategic choice. It is a balance sheet entry. It signals that the cost of large-scale conventional operations is now unsustainable. This is the endgame of the blueprint. By systematically dismantling an opponent's conventional solvency, you force them into a corner where their only remaining leverage is asymmetric. The degradation of their army makes them weaker on the ground, but exponentially more dangerous on a global scale. This weakness creates the mathematical certainty of a pivot toward their non-conventional arsenal. The state, facing terminal collapse, is left with a single, final option: escalate to a domain where the conventional balance of power is irrelevant. Their bankruptcy becomes a systemic liability for everyone. The kinetic cost curve has been inverted. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, documents the mathematical certainty of this new blueprint. A $5 million main battle tank is now a systemic liability, neutralized by a $500 first-person view drone. This is the democratization of violence. The barrier to entry for projecting lethal force has collapsed. The objective is no longer to defeat a tank battalion symmetrically. It is to induce a solvency crisis in the state that fields it. By enforcing an unsustainable loss ratio, bleeding high-value assets with disposable, low-cost vectors, you don't just win on the battlefield. You bankrupt the opponent's entire military-industrial protocol, forcing them toward their final, non-conventional options. The regional instability you are being shown is not the cause of global tension. It is the effect. These zones of chaos are not accidents, they are laboratories. We are witnessing the use of entire nations as proxy laboratories to stress test the blueprint for engineered collapse. The objective is no longer symmetric victory, it is the systemic dismantling of a rival's conventional solvency, forcing them toward their final, asymmetric option. Examine the Venezuelan model. Vintage photos document its former status as one of the world's richest nations, fueled by oil wealth. That prosperity was not lost, it was systematically dismantled. This was the proof of concept. A resource-rich state can be neutralized, its economic and conventional power liquidated, creating a failed state without the high kinetic cost of a traditional war. It becomes a liability to its allies and a template for future operations. This blueprint is now active in multiple gray zones. Estonia is officially designated a front line in the new Cold War, a tripwire to measure NATO response latency. Simultaneously, U.S. reconnaissance flights over Kaliningrad are not mere patrols. They are inputs for an algorithm calculating air defense saturation points. When the State Department issues a Leave Now travel warning for Iran, it is a procedural step, a clearing of the battle space before a non-kinetic or kinetic event is initiated. It is protocol. These are not isolated military maneuvers. They are coordinated economic and logistical pressure tests. According to CSIS analysts, even domestic travel warnings for Western nations are indicators of a region's viability as a proxy laboratory for staging instability. The Russian tactical shift to small unit attacks in Kupiansk is a direct test of Western logistical endurance. Each action is designed to remove an opponent's conventional options, piece by piece. The mechanism is irrefutable. By engineering a rival's conventional and economic collapse, you force them into a state of asymmetric escalation. You remove every option until only the non-conventional one remains. This turns their terminal weakness into your systemic liability. The gray zone is where this equation is perfected, calibrating the precise amount of pressure needed to corner a nuclear-armed state. The process creates a mathematical certainty of a miscalculation, where a controlled demolition becomes a global solvency crisis. The launch-on-warning protocol is not a choice. It is a mathematical function of time and distance. Once an adversary's missile launch is detected, you do not wait for impact confirmation. You launch your counter-strike while their warheads are in the air. The entire doctrine is predicated on one assumption: the initial warning is accurate. This brings us to the fog of digital war. In the current strategic environment, the warning system itself is the primary target. A systemic cyber attack is designed to blind a nation's early warning radar and satellite networks. The commander is now forced into a zero-sum calculation. Is the system failure a glitch, or is it the first move in a decapitation strike? Per protocol, the absence of data is treated as the worst-case data. CSIS analysts have documented that compromising an opponent's command, control, and communications is now a Tier 1 objective for state-level actors. This scenario is not engineered by accident. It is the end state of a deliberate strategy, the engineered collapse of a rival's conventional power. A state's economic solvency can be liquidated, as seen in the documented decline of Venezuela from one of the world's richest nations into systemic failure. Source number 1. This economic demolition removes conventional options. The target nation, now facing a severe solvency crisis, is backed into a corner where its only remaining leverage is its non-conventional deterrent. Therefore, the attacker achieves a tactical victory by creating an unsolvable dilemma. By probing defenses in flashpoints like the Baltics, source number 4, and forcing the opponent into a state of terminal weakness, you make the launch-on-warning decision a mathematical certainty. You have turned their final asset into a systemic liability. This isn't a miscalculation. It is the blueprint functioning as designed. The blueprint is not victory. It is engineered insolvency. The objective is to systematically dismantle a rival's conventional options until only non-conventional liabilities remain. Reports from CSEs note Russian tactical shifts in Kupiansk to small unit actions. This is not adaptation, it is a symptom of systemic degradation. As kinetic solvency decreases, the probability of an asymmetric response increases toward a mathematical certainty. The framework functions by forcing the opponent's hand. The next phase requires a calibration shot to test the threshold of systemic collapse and response protocols. The vector will not be kinetic. According to New Lines magazine, Estonia is the designated front line in the new Cold War, a laboratory for hybrid conflict due to its total digitization. This digital dependency is not a strength, it is a systemic vulnerability. The target is not the state, but the logistical and data architecture that underpins it. The calibration forecast. Within the next 12 months, expect a multi-hour, attribution impossible blackout targeting the Port of Tallinn's digital logistics network. Crane operations will freeze. Shipping manifests will corrupt. The event will appear as a catastrophic server failure, not a state-on-state attack. It is a non-kinetic test of NATO's Article 5 resilience, designed to be officially deniable, but strategically unmistakable. It measures response time, political cohesion, and the true cost of forcing an opponent into asymmetric escalation.